Reading with your kids.
Hola, niho, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, moni wanji, namaste, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are coming to you from the beautiful and historic neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so honored and so wicked happy that you're joining us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. Please be sure to tell all of your family and friends about the show, and please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Audible, Good Pods, Podcast Addict, wherever you find your podcast. Before we invite our guests into the studio, I want to ask you, are you looking for a unique way to support diverse voices in literature? Introducing By YQ Book Fairs, where every page tells a story of empowerment, culture, and diversity. By YQ Book Fairs is a 100% women and minority-owned initiative showcasing a hand-picked selection of diverse books that celebrate inclusivity and representation. From captivating narratives to thought-provoking poetry, our curated collection has something for everyone. And hosting a By YQ Book Fair is a super easy and a fantastic way to raise funds for your organization or cause. So why wait? Visit buyobq.com today to learn more about how you can bring the magic of diverse literature to your community while supporting women and minority-owned businesses. This episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast is brought to you by Lucas and the Game of Chance, a thrilling middle grade novel written by Anthony L. Mena. It is a Reading with Your Kids certified great read. While Lucas is playing his flute at the seawall one day, he befriends a mysterious talking dancing snake that rewards him with fortune and favor. Some years later, tempted by greed and pride, Lucas loses all of his riches and his family. He now must set off on a treacherous journey through a frightening forest filled with suspense and strange creatures. To find destiny, her son, Ilion, the sun, her daughter, Luna, the moon. These celestial guardians will surely allow him to reverse his misfortune, restore his honor, and win back all that he loves and treasures. Won't they? This is a reimagined Greek folk tale, Lucas in the Game of Chance. It's illuminated with dramatic and evocative pen and ink drawings that provide an ideal backdrop for the dark intrigue that fills this haunting story of human struggle, courage, and resilience. You and your kids are going to love it. Lucas and the Game of Chance by Anthony L. Mena. It is a Reading with Your Kids certified great read. Oh, we're going to have a fantastic time today. We have two wonderful guests. First, coming to us from Brooklyn in New York City. She is the author of the book we're celebrating today. It's called Luigi, the Spider Who Wanted to Be a Kitten. Please welcome to the show, Michelle Knudson. Hey, Michelle, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm wonderful. And joining us from Maine is the illustrator, Kevin Hawkes. Hey, Kevin.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going well. It's a lovely day here well, it's not. It's gloomy and overcast. But, you know, we're gonna pretend it's sunshine and 70 degrees, and we're having a good time watching the spiders. Michelle, tell us about Luigi.
Well, Luigi is sort of based on a real-life spider that I met a few years ago. I was between apartments and staying at a friend's house upstate in the country where they have large spiders, and I am not a fan of spiders in my everyday life. So I was very nervous about him, and I would talk to him and named him Luigi to kind of make myself feel better about the situation of us sharing the apartment. And then he sort of stayed in my head, and when I found a new place and I was back in the city, I started playing around with story ideas, trying to think about how I could work him into a story.
Very cool. You know, it reminds me here, the Reading with Your Kids studio, it's in our basement, and this is like a separate apartment from our home, and we've hosted international kids here in our home. for many years. And at the end of one year, when our daughter Sophia was going back to China, I said, hey, what can we do to make the space a little more inviting, a little friendlier for the next student who comes? And she said, well, you might want to get rid of the spider. I said, what? And she goes, oh, yes, there's a huge spider down there. And I said, why didn't you tell me? She goes, oh, I like him, but I don't know if the next student will. And I'm like, fair enough. That's So, Kevin, tell us about when you met Luigi in your imagination. How big were you imagining this spider?
Well, when I read the script, when I read the manuscript, Luigi was really likable, but I had never really met, likable looking spiders. So for me, I really had this task of trying to bring out Luigi's personality in a way that would make him look really, friendly and approachable, because, like Michelle, I was a little nervous by spiders. So, I thought about him for a long time and was just trying to picture what would a spider look like that was doing the Luigi things that Luigi was doing.
Yeah. So, Michelle, tell us some of those Luigi things that Luigi was doing.
Well, I guess what's important to know about this story is that Luigi wanders into a house. He's a big spider. He wanders into a house looking for like a dark corner to live in, and he's mistaken for a kitten and adopted by the lady who lives there. And at first he's very confused and unsure, but he comes to really enjoy the kitten life. And so then he's like all in, he's pretending to be a kitten, and he's terrified that she's going to find out he's really a spider. So Kevin came up with some really amazing ways. I was impressed the whole way through because, again, how do you make a spider adorable? And he's so adorable and cuddly. Like, he had to look like something you would want to snuggle up with, and he totally does. But Kevin came up with this great thing about where he uses his extra limbs to kind of make himself ears and a tail. And he's like trying as hard as he can with his whole body to pretend he's a kitten. And it's really wonderful.
I guess that's one of the challenges of being an illustrator that, those of us who aren't illustrators don't think about. It's taking something that exists that we, have an image in our mind of, and kind of completely turning that on its head, like making a spider really cuddly. Kevin, what's the first kind of things you need to do to make that happen?
Well, I really think hard about what makes anything cuddly, so the idea of a shape that's sort of roundish and softer as opposed to angular and spiky. I think about the size of the face compared to the head. I think about the size of the body. My first sketches had this spider with a great big body on it, and that changed to a very, very small body and shorter legs. I was thinking about all these things like proportions to try to make the spider cuter. But then also there was this big challenge of scale in the book because the main character is this spider, and you have to make the spider big enough that it could possibly be mistaken for a kitten, but yet the other character is a human, which is, by comparison, enormous. So there's a lot of interesting back and forth trying to balance those all those elements and make them work together.
Yeah. I hadn't even thought of the fact that Luigi would have to be big enough that it could be mistaken for a kitten. And that would be a pretty terrifying spider.
Yes, it was. And so you have to make it plausible, but not, you don't want, you don't want a Great Dane sized spider like running around.
No.
So, and when we were making when we were thinking about the cat elements, I was just thinking of these legs and how I could use the legs to make ears, but then there was a number thing, 8 legs. So I've got 2 ears, I've got a tail, That's 3. I have 4 paws. That's 7. What do we do with the 8th leg? And so at one point I had him draping a leg over their forehead to look like a stripe, but that was confusing, and we tried a few things, and eventually in the end, if you're careful and you look closely, Luigi has 5 kitten paws. He has like one set of legs that are just like always hanging very close together.
Michelle, what was it like when you were getting the sketches and watching Luigi and Kevin's illustrations kind of come to life?
Oh, that's always such an exciting part of the story, of the process, because first of all, I've worked with Kevin before on our book Library Lion many years ago, and so I knew it was going to be wonderful, whatever it was, and Kevin also has lots of different styles, so like I wasn't sure exactly like which style this kind of he was going to use in this book, so it was very exciting, and it's just an amazing process, because of course I have images in my head when I start to write the story, and an illustrator always goes to places I would never imagine in the best possible way. So there ends up being all the stuff in the artwork that I would never have come up with, that were not even remotely sort of what was in my head, and yet it just makes the story so much bigger and fuller because of everything that's added to the artwork. So it's so exciting. The whole process is so exciting for me. Yeah. And plus my work is mostly done at that point, so I can just relax and enjoy as Kevin's working.
I imagine if Kevin couldn't figure out something to do with that extra leg, you might have had to go back and, write about a disabled spider who thought it was a kitten.
We sometimes... Oh, sorry, Kevin.
I was just going to say, you used the word exciting. I wondered if terrifying was probably a better word. Like when you receive sketches from me, I don't know what it's like being on the author end of it, but getting sketches, at some point it must be a little bit terrifying, like not quite knowing how this was going to go, right?
Sometimes. Not with you, because you did such a great job on our last book, and I was confident that I was going to love whatever you sent in. Sometimes there is a little nervousness, like on when you're working with an illustrator that you don't know their work as well, or you haven't seen their work, and also sometimes the sketches are rough when I see them, and so then I'm trying to imagine like where they're going to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm wondering, as an author, do you ever have, not that Kevin has ever sent you a sketch that you weren't comfortable with, but have you ever had a sketch show up and you're like, nah, this just, it ain't doing it for me, and brought it to the art director's attention? You don't have to say who or what book.
Sometimes early on, in one or two of my picture books, when there was something about the initial character sketch that just didn't seem to work in terms of who the character was going to be. So like early on it was very difficult to sort of let go, when I was a new writer, because again, you have those ideas in your mind, and it's like, wait, but that's not what this person looks like in my head, but I've let go of that. And now I love, someone else sort of imagining all the things, but and at one or two books, there was an initial sketch where the character, it didn't feel like there was an element of how they looked that just wasn't going to work in the story, as far as I was concerned. And so when that happens, I talk to my editor, and we usually talk about the sketches together anyway. And then she sort of decides what then she talks about with the art director. And then the art director decides what they talk about with the illustrator. So there's a lot of steps, because I don't want to get in the way. Also, I don't want to, I'm not an illustrator. And so my initial reaction might not be like, even if it's like, oh, I don't know about this, I might be wrong in terms of what's going to work best visually. So I'm glad that there's a lot of people involved in that process, I guess.
It kind of sounds like something that goes on at the UN. You know, we don't cause an international incident here. Let me talk to her, and she can talk to him, and they can talk to each other. Kevin, how many iterations of Luigi did it take before you said, yes, this is it?
You know, it took a lot. I did dozens and dozens of sketches of Luigi, and each one got a little closer or took me further away. It was sort of like this give and take, you know, like, oh no, that's too far that way. Well, let's pull that back, and then, oh, this is looking better, but it's not far enough. And so there's this whole process of just, you know, pushing along. And I decided early on that I was just going to send all of my sketches to the art director, and she shared them with the editor and with Michelle, I'm sure. And at that point, I would have loved to have been a fly or a spider on the wall to kind of see how all of it was being taken. But it did take a while. And I'll have to say this about Michelle's writing is that I love how she ties everything together. It's very, she's boiled it down to like rocket science for 7-year-olds. Okay. So, if I was ever feeling like, you know, you get tired after a while, sometimes you get tired as an illustrator, like you've done so many versions of this, you're like, okay, that's it. That's the version right there. And you're hoping you can go take a long weekend or something. And I'm just glad that editors and art directors and authors are there going like, you know, that's really nice. That's really good. But maybe we could like keep going, try another version, you know. And I needed that kind of encouragement to keep at it until we got just like the exact right note.
Yeah, it's curious when I have a niece who is a very talented artist and she draws things, but she says, "Well, I can't draw. I have to be inspired." And she's not looking to do this for a living, so it's fine. But have you ever had a situation where you've turned in a bunch of sketches and, you know, you like really love sketch number 8 and want to take that character, but you hate sketch number 1, and then you get the word back from the art director and say, yeah, we love sketch number 1, and you're sitting there, oh, I have to draw this thing 32 times.
Yes, I've learned never to send the sketch you hate. Because it will be the one they choose.
Michelle, when you were talking about the encountering the spider at a friend's house, and, you know, you doing what you started to talk to it so you could share a space together, at what moment did you know this is going to be a great story?
It's a good question. It's always hard for me to really pinpoint the moment that an idea starts to like become an idea. In the moment, I was certainly not thinking about it. I was really just focused on like, where is he? Is he in the ceiling? Is he going to crawl on me when I'm sleeping? You know, I was just dealing with the immediate situation. But my mind kind of just kept going back to him. And I think the more I thought, and I had named him Luigi in the house, and so the more I thought about him, the more he started to feel like a character to me, and then I wanted to do something with him. And the story changed a lot. The original version of the story was not from his perspective, and it was a little. I mean, it's still, you know, it's sort of a silly story, right? He's a spider mistaken for a kitten, but it was sillier about a lady who lost her glasses, and she. Kevin, you probably didn't see any of the early versions of this, but it was, you know, she like has this giant spider and all the neighborhood kids are like, that's not a kitten. And she's like, what are you talking about? And I liked it, but it didn't have the heart that I wanted it to have. There was something missing. And it wasn't until, and I worked on it with my editor for, a long time, many, many drafts. And it wasn't until I tried telling it from the spider's perspective that it got that thing that it was missing, because then you're with him as he sort of goes on this little emotional journey, and he realizes what it's like to have a person and have someone take care of him and love him, and then he's afraid to lose it. And I think that's something everybody can identify with.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, I love this story. It sounds so sweet. To be honest with you, the lady reminds me a lot of one of my great aunts when I was growing up. And, we lived in this neighborhood where everybody was related, and I would hear these stories about this crazy lady, and then I was very surprised when it turned out to be my great aunt. What kind of conversations, and I'm going to ask you both from both perspectives. Michelle, what kind of conversations do you think kids can have as they're reading this story with their parents?
Well, I mean, I feel like there's a lot of things that they can talk about. There's sort of surface level stuff of the story of, like, could that really happen? And, that kind of thing. And like, what do you think Luigi was thinking here or there? But I'm hoping what they'll ultimately talk about is the importance of sort of not pretending to be something that you're not, trusting that people will like you and love you for who you are, because that's ultimately where the story goes. She knows he's a spider, and she loves him, not just despite that, but in part because of that. And that's a really important thing to sort of realize, that you don't have to try to be someone else. You shouldn't try to be someone else. You want people to really love you for who you are.
Yeah.
Hopefully they'll talk about that.
Yeah. And Kevin, I really encourage families to take a picture walk through a book before they even read the story and just talk about the illustrations. What kind of conversations do you think your illustrations will inspire amongst families?
I think hopefully that my illustrations will give a different perspective on first of all, what it's like to live in a house. I was thinking about living in a house from a spider's point of view. So there are places in the house that you don't normally see, like under the couch and up in the corner of the ceiling, and everything's big, and sort of opening up that conversation, like, wow, this is someone who's living in our house but has a very different idea of it. And the other thing probably is, like, just what does a spider mean when you see a spider? And sort of maybe like, okay, is this, does a spider, do we judge spiders like just because we've had, like these creepy feelings about them for all these years, or what? So, hopefully they'll love Luigi. I love Luigi. Yeah. He's very comfortable looking and very friendly looking.
Well, I tell you, I fell in love with that spider that Sophia became friends with here in our home, because we had a nest or hive of wasps right outside of our entrance here. And one summer, we didn't know it was in. We left the door open, and so they all came inside. But very quickly, our spider took care of them, so it wasn't a problem. He became my buddy. Hey, Kevin, where can we go to find out more about you and find out more about the books that you've created?
You can go to my website, which is kevinhawkes.com, or you can go to my Instagram, which is Kevin Hawkes Official.
Awesome. And Michelle, where can we go to find out more about you and your books, and especially Luigi, the spider who wanted to be a kitten?
You can also go to my website, which is just my name, michelleknudson.com. And also Instagram, which is also just my name with a period in the middle.
Awesome. We've had a really fun time speaking to the author and illustrator of Luigi, the Spider Who Wanted to Be a Kitten. Brand new picture book from our friends Kevin Hawkes and Michelle Knudson. My friends, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you. This is great.
Thank you.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast, and will join us for the next exciting episode of the show. To make sure you don't miss a moment of the show, please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Good Pods, Boomplay, Player FM, wherever you find your podcast. And please be sure to visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com. You can click on the Parents Click Here button at the top of the page, check out our blog, our certified great reads, and download our free online magazine. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, I want to start by thanking our amazing guest, I also want to thank my team, Fatima Khan, Rory Grady, Kyoko Ito, Nick Warner, Sydney Swan, Kayla Newland, Kristen Barrett, Hannah Rose. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. You are amazing. You are the most important person in your kid's life, and you make the world a better place every time you choose to read with your kid. I'll be looking for you in the next exciting episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.